They underestimate you because you're too easy to read. They talk over you, test your limits, cross your boundaries, not because you're weak, but because you're harmless. There's a difference. You show your emotions too quickly. You smile before thinking. You try to be accepted before being respected. You try to be liked before being feared. But in a Machiavellian world, being liked without being feared is the fastest way to be ignored. The world doesn't respect kindness. It uses it. The world doesn't fear goodness. It fears silence, mystery, the unknown. Since childhood, you've been trained to be nice, smile, be open, be easy to talk to, but no one fears what's easy to read. And if they don't fear you, they can't respect you. Because people don't respect what's predictable. They manipulate it. That's the first truth Machiavelli teaches, and it's brutal. He wasn't warning kings. He was warning you. A man who is not feared will always be vulnerable, no matter how talented, kind, or intelligent he is. That doesn't mean you should become cruel. It means you must become unreadable. Because in a room full of people trying to prove themselves, the quiet one, the still one, is the one everyone watches, not because they expect a joke, but because they expect something they can't name. That's your new strategy, not to chase attention, but to demand caution, not to be loud, but to be unreadable. Because the moment people believe they've figured you out, they will try to control you. But when they're unsure what you'll do next, they respect the space you take. They walk carefully, they talk differently. They second-guess every move they make around you. This is how you gain power without speaking. Look at your life. How many people only respected you after you walked away? How many only apologized once you stopped talking? How many tested you until you enforced your silence? It's because you were playing the good game. They were playing the power game. They knew you'd forgive, that you'd explain yourself, that you'd never escalate. And once people realize you won't escalate, they will. They'll raise their voice, push your buttons, cross your lines, and they'll win. This doesn't just happen in politics, like Machiavelli wrote about. It happens in relationships, at work, even in your own home. You're being tested, not because you're weak, but because you're available. They don't test the dangerous ones. They test the emotionally accessible ones, the ones who care too openly, because they know your empathy will stop you before your pride does. But once you become a quiet threat, they pause. They flinch before they speak. They adjust their tone. They hesitate to disrespect. Not because you raised your voice, but because now you might bite, and that might is more powerful than a punch. Because silence makes people wonder, what is he thinking? What will he do? Where is this going? People don't fear what they understand. They fear what they don't. They fear what contradicts itself. What's calm when others are loud? What's still when others panic? You don't have to fight for respect. You make people earn the right to speak freely around you. You don't need violence. You need unpredictability. That's the Machiavellian way. Start by controlling 3 things: your energy, your visibility, your silence. When you're in a room, don't compete for attention. Don't announce your intentions. Let others speak first. Watch, learn, measure. Because the one who speaks least is the one everyone notices most. They fear what they can't define. They respect what they can't predict. So never show your full hand. Loud people show everything. Their goals, their wounds, their insecurities. They brag, they explain, they react. And in doing so, they give away their map. The more they reveal, the easier it is to defeat them. But when you're silent, when your emotions are hidden behind a calm face, they prepare for you. They can't read you, so they can't plan against you. You are no longer a man. You become a question, a variable, a shadow. That's how you gain power without speaking. Step 2, never defend yourself, never explain, because every time you defend, you give the other person emotional control. You tell them, "You matter enough to make me explain myself." Machiavelli would never explain. He'd nod, smile, say, "Noted," and walk away, because if someone calls you cold and you rush to justify it, you've already lost. You've shown them they still have access to your feelings. But when you stay calm, neutral, even pleasant, you become unpredictable, dangerous, not in what you do, but in what you don't. Step 3, be inconsistent. One day kind, one day distant. One moment open, the next unreadable. This isn't manipulation, this is power, because emotional instability causes psychological submission. People fear the version of you they haven't met yet, and that fear creates respect. They won't test you, not because they know what you'll do, but because they don't. That's dark psychology. That's Machiavellian silence. Step 4, stay composed in chaos. When others yell, you blink slowly. When they gossip, you stay quiet. When they panic, you breathe deeper. Because when they realize they can't shake you, they realize they can't move you. And that stillness is terrifying. Because if you can't be moved emotionally, no one knows what might move you strategically. It forces them to guess. And when people guess, they behave. That's what Machiavelli meant when he said it's safer to be feared than loved, not because fear is cruel, but because fear creates boundaries. When you say little, every word matters, and when they can't predict your words, they change their behavior before you even speak. That's not communication. That's command. You don't need to argue. You need to exist in a way that commands attention. The world is full of people trying to be liked, but the few who are feared quietly, those are the ones everyone watches, everyone adjusts for, everyone walks carefully around. Why? Because they might react, and that might is more powerful than any threat. The mistake most people make is believing power requires presence, but real power is presence that speaks without words, respect that's earned through silence, control that's built through unreadability. Let's talk psychology. When someone doesn't fear losing you, they start to take more. More time, more words, more energy. They expect you to wait, to serve, to explain, to fix everything, because your kindness has no weight. But when your absence is felt, when your silence holds tension, you become irreplaceable. You don't need to yell, you don't need to fight, you just need to leave the room and make people feel it. That's silent power. That's how unreadable men rise. So remember, a threat isn't a punch. It's a pause. It's walking away after being disrespected. It's smiling at someone who thought they won while planning their irrelevance. It's being so calm that people wonder, what does he know that we don't? In this world, if you're not feared, you're forgotten. Don't just be good, be unreadable. Don't just be present, be powerful in your silence. That is the Machiavellian way. When you stop chasing people, something strange happens. They begin to feel your absence. Like a storm has left the room. Your silence suddenly becomes a mirror. It makes them question themselves. They start thinking, Why isn't he replying? Why is he so calm? What did I do wrong? You didn't punish them. You simply disappeared, and now they're left with the weight of their own thoughts. That is psychological power. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He didn't raise armies to gain power. He created fear by using silence, by stepping back, by doing less and letting others panic. Because when people can't predict your next move, they become unsure of themselves. They either run away or they come crawling back to win your favor. Either way, you win. This is where most people fail. They act like emotional dogs, loyal even when betrayed, friendly even when insulted, obedient even when ignored. They bark loudly, trying to get attention, but Machiavelli teaches, don't be the dog, be the wolf. And here's the truth no one tells you. The wolf doesn't bark. He observes, he waits, and when he strikes, it's already too late. You must become that silent predator. You don't argue, you don't explain, you don't chase. You just move in silence and watch how people react. The ones who make the deepest impact don't speak the loudest. In fact, they speak the least. The loud people are noticed for a moment, but the quiet ones, they haunt memory. They stay on people's minds long after they've left. People replay your silence like a riddle they can't solve. Why didn't he respond? Was he testing us? What did his silence mean? They can't move on because you never gave them closure, and when someone can't close a chapter, they reread it again and again. That's how real power is built, not through what you say, but through what you don't say. It's not your words, it's your presence, your posture, your absence. The wolf doesn't need to growl, he just needs to be noticed. Machiavelli wouldn't yell orders, he'd watch, he'd wait, he'd make people fear what he didn't say more than what he did. You want to dominate a room without saying a single word. You build daily habits that confuse and control. Here's how. Habit 1. Never react first. Someone insults you, provokes you, tries to trigger you. Don't flinch. Everyone else scrambles to defend themselves, but not you. You pause, you breathe, you blink maybe. That stillness, it makes people nervous because reacting first is weakness. The one who waits. That's the person everyone watches. Machiavelli knew. Silence isn't hesitation, it's calculation. People don't fear confrontation. They fear being studied. Habit 2, speak slower, say less, leave earlier. These simple moves rewire how people see you. When you speak slowly, it feels like you're in control. When you say less, your words carry more weight. And when you leave early, you become a mystery. Most people want to be understood, but power doesn't want understanding. It wants interpretation. Let people wonder, was he agreeing with me or warning me? Why did he leave when the mood changed? Machiavelli never stayed long enough to be fully understood. Because what people can't define, they start to fear. Habit 3, withdraw often, show up rarely. The most powerful people aren't always present, but when they are, everyone feels it. Why? Because they don't over-appear, disappear from social spaces, exit chats, skip arguments, walk out of meetings. Why? Because the longer you stay, the more you blend in. The dog is always there. The wolf shows up, then vanishes. And when he vanishes, everyone notices. That's how Machiavelli trained respect through scarcity. Don't be the one they expect to see. Be the one they wonder about when you're gone. Habit 4. Stop explaining yourself. You said no? Good. Don't explain. You changed. Your mind, let it stay changed. You walked away. Keep walking. Don't wrap your choices in emotion. Don't soften your boundaries, because every time you explain yourself, you give away power. Once you defend, you stop commanding. And now you're negotiating. A real threat never negotiates. Habit 5. Stay emotionally neutral. People will test you. They'll throw little jokes, try to poke you, guilt trip you, flirt with you, all to break your silence. Why? Because they can feel you're calm and it scares them. Your unreadable energy. It bothers them. They want to crack your code. Because if they can't, they have to assume you're stronger than they are. Let them assume, smile, observe, withdraw. Because the more they try to figure you out, the more control you gain. Machiavelli didn't just look powerful. He lived with powerful rituals. He practiced restraint. Every move he made whispered, "You don't know what I'm capable of. But if you cross me, you might find out." There's a fine line between being mysterious and being ignored, between silence that commands a room and silence that makes you invisible. Machiavelli didn't just choose fear over love. He balanced. Both. He knew, if you're only feared, people will obey you in public but hate you in private. They'll plan your downfall while pretending to follow. That's weak power. It's temporary. If you're only respected, people will admire you, but they'll feel too safe. They'll start expecting more from you, start walking over you. Because respect without fear becomes entitlement. So what's the solution? Tension. Powerful people create tension just by walking into a room, not chaos. Not drama. Tension. That subtle feeling that says, "I'm kind, but don't test me. I'm calm, but don't try me. I'm silent, but I'm not asleep." And how do you build that tension? Machiavelli's rule. Be steady in your control, but unpredictable in emotion, always composed but not always warm. Sometimes you're present, sometimes you vanish, sometimes you listen, sometimes you disappear without saying a word. This keeps people guessing. And when people can't read you, they stop trying to control you, because power, real power, isn't loud, it's quiet, it's felt, not heard, and the strongest voice in the room is often the one that says nothing at all. Sometimes it's not your words that strike the deepest. It's your silence. A glance, a pause, a disappearance. You're not angry. You're not passive. You're just gone. And that absence, it echoes louder than any speech ever could. You show up with control, calm, slightly amused, but never emotional. You're collected, but not fully present. Just enough to make them question what you're thinking. That unpredictability, that subtle withdrawal, it keeps people off balance. You give them one clear, precise moment, then vanish. You leave before they get too close. You leave the sentence unfinished. You say less, but it sticks more, like a knife that cuts clean. No explanation, no second attempt, just one line that echoes. That's tension. That's power. You never beg to be heard. You train people to notice your absence. When they're used to your presence and suddenly it disappears, that void feels heavier than they expected. That's the genius of Machiavelli. He never warned you he was leaving. He just left. And people felt it. You stop replying, you stop nodding, you exit the room without a goodbye, no closure, just silence, and suddenly they realize what your presence meant. You don't need to threaten, you don't need to explain, because next time they'll watch their words. They'll measure their tone. They'll move carefully, and not out of fear, but because your absence taught them something your words never had to. When people praise you, you don't flinch. You don't deflect or return the compliment. You simply nod, hold their gaze. Maybe a calm, unreadable smile. Not because you're arrogant, but because their words were nice, not necessary. That unsettles people. It tells them something terrifying. You already know you're worthy. Their validation doesn't move you. It confirms what you already carry inside. That's what real power looks like. Stillness that feels like mystery. A calm that unnerves the loud. In today's world, everyone is trying to shout louder, but the ones who whisper, the ones who disappear after one sentence, those are the ones people remember. Machiavelli understood this. He didn't just want control of the room. He wanted to live in your head after he left it, because the most dangerous kind of influence is the kind that stays behind in silence. True power is not about forcing your presence. It's about making people feel it even after you've walked away. And the most unforgettable kind of presence, the one that never explained itself. Men forget the death of their father faster than they forget the loss of their inheritance. Now ask yourself, what kind of man must you become so that when you walk away, it feels like someone lost a treasure? Let's build that version of you, step by step. Obsession is never born from being too available. It's born from distance. People don't obsess over what they understand. They obsess over what they almost had, but couldn't fully grasp. You want to be that. Real enough to touch, distant enough to never fully own. A word, a smirk. Calmness that throws off the unstable, then you vanish. Now they're left trying to finish a puzzle with missing pieces. Their mind loops. They can't stop thinking about the moment, the look, the silence. That's how you gain power without speaking. Strategy 1. Don't give them what they expect. Most people expose themselves too quickly, too friendly, too open, too eager. You do the opposite. You move slow, you speak less. You smile just enough to raise questions, not give answers. That creates contrast. And contrast creates control. You don't dominate the room. You shift its energy. People slow down around you. They adjust their tone. They breathe differently, not because you told them to, but because your silence demanded it. That's the mark of real presence. Strategy 2. Let them project. Then say nothing. They'll try to label you. He's intense. She's mysterious. They're hard to read. Good. Let them. Because once they start imagining who you are, they start creating a version of you in their minds. Their fantasies do all the work. Your silence becomes their obsession. They dissect your words, replay your expressions. They invent stories just to fill the void your silence left behind. And you don't correct them, because now their imagination is your marketing team. And the less you clarify, the more they crave. Strategy 3. Leave them mid-sentence, metaphorically or literally. People live for closure. They want clean endings, tidy goodbyes, final answers. You don't give them that. You walk away before they're ready. You answer half their question. You disappear just when the moment starts feeling too safe. Why? Because that unfinished moment, that's the hook. Their minds will replay it endlessly, trying to complete what you left hanging. That's not manipulation. That's psychological gravity, and it pulls them back every time. Strategy 4. protect your inner world like a kingdom. When they ask what drives you, you say, I'm focused. When they ask how you're feeling, you say, always adjusting. When they ask what you want, you say, depends on the day. You give them fog, never the fire, because the second they fully understand your why, they'll try to map out your how. And that's when they start trying to control. You keep your thoughts guarded, your motives blurry. Let them guess, let them wonder. Because when someone can't enter your world, they stop trying to invade it. They start watching from a distance, silently obsessed with the pieces they'll never solve. Machiavelli wasn't remembered because he did everything. He was remembered because he could have done anything. And people never knew what he'd choose next. That uncertainty, that's the part they can't forget. And now you've reached the final phase, where silence isn't a trick. It's your default. You're not hiding. You're just choosing who gets to hear your thoughts, who gets to feel your presence, who earns your energy. Power isn't when people obey you. It's when they adjust themselves just in case you're watching, because you've become unreadable. And the unreadable man, he cannot be controlled. Once people understand you, they start managing you. But once they realize they'll never fully get to the bottom of you, they stop trying. They let go of control, and in that moment, they give you something far more powerful than obedience. Because now, you're no longer a person they understand. You've become something far more dangerous. You've become a mystery they can't touch, and what's untouchable becomes unstoppable.